Well, hello. Great to be here today. I'm Beau Higgins from Oplign, and this is our very first Oplign podcast, the Opcast. So excited to be kicking things off and excited to have our first guest on the podcast, Marnie Holder, who is a dear friend of mine, and looking forward to talking to her today about her background and what she's doing now and just getting to know her a little better. So for those out there in podcast land, thanks for listening in and hope you get something out of this. If you are interested in learning more about Oplign and what we do and supporting our veterans find jobs and helping companies find great veteran talent, certainly reach out to me. But with that, I will turn it over quickly to Marnie for an intro. Marnie, welcome today and great to have you here.
Thanks, Beau. The Opcast. I love that. Catchy little title there. Truly honored to be a part of your first podcast. And I always just love working with you. Your energy is infectious, always has been, always will. And I'm always here supporting the projects you do. And Oplign is just one of those platforms that I call it the easy button for anyone. I mean, if you don't know about it, you got to get smart on it. It doesn't take that long because it's super easy to use. But to me, in the times that I've been in this space, it's a no-brainer. It's the best way to connect talent to really the jobs they qualify for. So I'm excited to talk about that, but just talk about kind of what's brought us both to this point and then what we can do going forward.
Yeah, no, great. And I'm excited as well. I'm in my Mardi Gras prep mode, got my purple and green on today and gold, getting ready for some Mardi Gras time in the weeks
I didn't
ahead.
get the memo on the attire. I
On
should
the
have
jacket? Well,
known.
you know I'm always bringing the jacket. That's kind of my
Yes,
thing. You know me. I can't help myself.
that's right.
I'm packing for Mardi Gras and have the jackets in the closet. We're kind of picking which ones I'm going to bring. So it's an exciting time for me, for sure.
Good deal. Good deal.
Well, I know we've been in the veteran hiring space for a long time, and obviously my background is being in the Marine Corps, but would love to kind of just go back in time and how did you get into this space? Because you've been supporting veterans and veteran hiring and the military community for a long time. Kind of give me a little background of how did you get here in the first place?
Yeah, no, my journey is certainly not a traditional journey. Started out as being an Army spouse way back in the early 90s when our first duty station was Washington, D.C. And I was going to school full time and then was working in the U.S. Senate. Next thing you know, we're moving to Hawaii. We get our next duty station as Hawaii. And I just started traversing Department of Army civilian space and learning just kind of how things are operating on that side. But over the course of my career on installation management, I got a chance to just move into, gosh, you name it, every different facet of installation management. And I became really familiar just with one, how to support the military programming, certainly for those serving, but also the families too. Worked my way up to working at Installation Management Command headquarters at the time, managing 75 Army bases worldwide. And it just so happened at the timing that hit, the Soldier for Life movement was afoot. We were downsizing all of the force structure and really putting a lot of the burden on just hiring veterans and making sure that as those service members were exiting the service that they were getting connected to meaningful employment. And so I was given the task of kind of launching a new program for the Army at the time. We had the Transition Assistance Program, but there wasn't really any structure or emphasis put on how do we partner or work with those on the outside. So how are we making a smooth connection of those that are getting prepared to transition, getting them in front of jobs that are available, but then what's the support network on the other side? So I stood up a team for the headquarters, worked very closely with then what was called the Soldier for Life Transition Program. But we did kind of create, not formalized partnerships, but working with entities that supported that transition. One of those just happened to be the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Hiring Our Heroes. And they, at the time, created a summit, a transition summit, is what it was called, needed to take it to military bases, but we're bringing in all facets of Veterans Affairs, Department of Labor, Small Business Administration, the government agencies, responsible to support transition, but then also all of the different employers and all of the different veteran service organizations that were also standing up to support that transition as well. So what happened is it was the first time kind of breaking ground on bringing in as a holistic entity all of these support services into one singular event. So we made some great strides in 2013, 2014. We did our first event at Fort Bliss, Texas. And it was incredible. And it was great for those that were job seeking, and I talk about service members and military spouses, but it was really great to get everyone in a room talking together, not in small pockets, but that everyone was really collaborating on a grand scale. So that really gave a great model and proof of concept to what started to now be kind of a traveling road show. So we started with Army bases. I think we did 5 over the next few years, and it just started kind of getting momentum. We, I think, moved up to around 10 to 13 a year at that point, but then it was Hiring Our Heroes and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce wanted to take it to other branches of service. So how do we do that on a bigger scale? And that's when I moved out of the government space and moved over into the nonprofit space to really help open this idea up to all the branches of service, and then simultaneously continue to educate employers on the value of veterans, value of military spouses, create different career pathways. SkillBridge was being developed at the time. I was a part of developing the language and that policy. Army was kind of leading the charge on it, but it was something that was embraced at the DoD level. So being a part of all of those kind of events and programming and policies that were really the foundation of what we're experiencing today. So I started with the nonprofit space back in 2016 and did that for about 6 years. We went from doing the 10 to 13 events a year, in-person events, to moving to, I think we did 48 the last year I was there, and we were talking worldwide. And then we also stood up a virtual program. So we were doing virtual programming simultaneous to the in-person events. So it was neat to just see a collaborative space for everyone to have a part of it, and certainly those service organizations and employers that were committed and invested into hiring that talent and getting, rolling up their sleeves and getting involved in creating ways to solve those problems for the military. So we reduced unemployment significantly. I think it still continues to stay below the civilian counterparts, and it's neat to just see what continues to happen. I moved over from Hiring Our Heroes into now I get to be in the storytelling side of it. I work at the National Veterans Memorial and Museum in Columbus, Ohio, but we tell stories of all veterans, all eras, and if you think about it, you don't become a veteran until you take off the uniform. So the predominance of that story is when you're out of service, and so the employment side of it and the different career paths they choose is very much in line with our mission and what we're really trying to highlight, inspire, and honor and recognize, and to continue to show that the military is a great foundation and career path to whatever you want to do after service.
No, that's awesome, and it's wonderful to hear kind of the history of how you got from there to here these days, and truly being the OG in the space, and starting with that as a military spouse and working with the Army, and to see it grow so much. I mean, 2013. I think, if you look at things today in 2025, I mean, the space has changed dramatically, obviously.
Gosh, yeah.
And the investment that's gone into it and the growth of it and the programs, like you mentioned, from SkillBridge and apprenticeships and the military spouse side of things, to watch that grow has been incredible. And so thankful for all your support to be there from the beginning. And again, I think it's interesting to hear how it kind of started with the Army and grew from there, and supported the other services. And now we have everyone really involved in different ways, shapes, or forms from all the branches and all the services. But it's to see it today and to understand what it was, because it was not a thing. I mean, back in 2012, 13, it was an idea, and it was kind of something everybody knew we should do. But I don't think there was much of a plan on how to actually do it, and your part of that is huge to have continued to push that and open up the opportunities for our veterans and our military spouses and our military community as a whole to connect with each other, because as I mean, transition can be scary, and I think you're seeing it now on the veteran side once you've been out. But as you can appreciate, when you're making that transition, it's hard. It's not something that people, I mean, a lot of folks, joined up when they were 18 and never had a job before, and they have to leave that behind and get into the real world eventually and put the uniform behind. It can be a little bit scary. But again, I think your investment to help those programs grow has been huge, and I know the impact you've had on so many veterans and so many military spouses and families is certainly appreciated. So it's great to see the kind of the cycle from where you started to where it grew and to where it is today, and to what you're doing today. And I'd like to highlight that more, because I think a lot of people probably know about Hiring Our Heroes and what they're doing. And obviously, your time there was awesome. That's where we met, and certainly loved supporting you there. But would love to talk a little bit more, maybe about the museum and kind of what it's all about, because I feel like it's a great resource there in Columbus, Ohio. But a lot of folks don't know about it. It's in the middle of, not saying the middle of nowhere, but the middle of the country and relatively new. Can you talk a little bit about its background and history and
Yeah.
kind of what you do and what should people know about the museum and what it's doing and how they can maybe get involved more?
Yeah, I have to be, fully honest. I didn't even know that it existed until I was contacted by our former CEO, who I had worked with in during my Army time. I didn't even know it was here. So we opened our doors back in October of 2018. So we're going on our sixth year now, and it was how it came to be in Columbus, Ohio is a fascinating story. It was really the vision of the late Senator John Glenn, who's a veteran himself, obviously astronaut, but he lived right down the street from where we exist today. And there used to be what everyone called the Old Vets Memorial here. It was a very old, dilapidated building. There were a lot of different things that happened in that space over the many years that it was here. But he looked on it and just said, look, we need to do more to honor our veterans in a more reputable, respectful way. And so his idea was, look, we need to do something that carries a memorial, but also telling the story of what that service means. So we had some strong support from many in the state to create what then was going to be an Ohio Veterans Museum and Memorial. And when the money was raised and they said, well, we'll just connect it to whatever the National Veterans Museum is, did some research, found out there isn't one that exists. So then it was, well, wait a minute, we're not representing just Ohio veterans because there isn't such thing. There's U.S. veterans. Everyone that raises their hand to serve is representing to defend the Constitution of the United States. So they went to Congress with money in hand for the project and said, look, we would like to get national designation for this museum in Columbus, Ohio. Of course, there were other states that said, wait, oh, we want to talk about this first too. The Texas, the Floridas of the world, the Californias, but no one had the money in hand as we did and hadn't moved that far along on the project. We did get national designation. We are a nonprofit entity. We receive no federal funding. But in doing that, it really just opens aperture to talk about service in a different way. I mean, obviously, veterans are our subject, veterans, all areas, all branches, but we're really here to exist to show, veterans are everywhere. They are among us. Get curious about their stories and just how their lives have impacted everyone around them. But also, service is for everyone. You don't have to wear the uniform to serve in some capacity or another. And so that's really what we're trying to do through this museum is just open the eyes and minds to service is for everyone, and that service can be something as helping your next door neighbor or doing something in your community or you name it, and allow that to be inspired through the voice of veterans who have served and how their lives have been transformed and how they have overcome obstacle challenges in various fashions to be a part of something greater than themselves and to protect and defend something greater than themselves. And so what we do and what we've done over the last 5 years is just get creative and innovative. We're not a museum that you're going to see a lot of tanks and aircraft and equipment, but we are a museum that is focused on the individuals, and we're very human-centered, and we are here to highlight just that service. And like I said, a veteran becomes a veteran the day they take off the uniform. So there's so much of that part of their journey that we can do. I think that there's many that are in the fabric of our U.S. doing various things that I think a lot of people don't know that are veterans. And so wherever we can show the spotlight of how that foundation of service really transformed them and created opportunities for them and their families. I know that that's a big part of it as well. We have a new CEO this year, and for those that are in the Columbus area may have heard, we've got Dr. Frederick Bertley. He is the CEO and president of the Center of Science and Industry, COSI, for short, here in Columbus, but it also has a national reach and international reach. They are doing projects and activations and taking STEM and STEAM into countries and communities nationwide and internationally. And it's just really neat to see how they are taking kind of that science. Science is everywhere to the world. And so we're working in collaboration with them to do even more on the service side of it. How can we really inspire service in communities and nationally as well?
No, that's awesome. And again, certainly an underappreciated asset, I think, in the country that more folks need to know about and should know about, and a place for everyone or anyone to tell their story that was a veteran, And it's certainly amazing if you look around to see the number of veterans that have done so well in this country and that had that military background and attribute their success to their time in the military, whether they served for 3 years or 30 years. A lot of folks that didn't serve for long, and were super successful. You look at the Fred Smiths at FedEx, or, a lot of folks like that only served for a few years. But that time was so impactful for them. And I think it resonates with others that are getting out today that can, look back on those few years of service and how impactful it was, and how it sets them up for success later on in life in so many ways that you don't appreciate, I think, when you're in the military, right? I
Yeah.
think a lot of people join for a host of reasons. And a lot of
Yeah.
times maybe it's to escape, your little hometown and get away and see the world. It could be for the benefits, which are great. It could be for your family served, and a myriad of reasons why people join. But but for everyone that joins, they're impacted, and I think that those stories resonate because so few people serve these days, right? That's the reality. We don't have a lot of folks that serve, relatively speaking. It's not World War II, it's not where everyone on your block served like it was back in the day. It's almost hard to find a veteran in some
Yeah.
neighborhoods, right? And I think it's important to capture those stories and share those stories and hopefully maybe inspire others to serve. Kids see it and maybe they get inspired to serve later on, but also to show those veterans that are maybe transitioning now or are looking to get out to see what they can become and how their service can be so impactful, because you don't think about it when you're in. When you're in, you're just kind of doing it. It's like, this is my job, I do it, I love it, I'm proud of it, but you don't always think about the what next and the impact of all that. And to capture some of those stories is great, and again, much needed, but probably not utilized as well as it should be. I guess, how do veterans find you? How do they tell their stories? What do you want veterans that are out there to know about what you provide and how they can get involved?
Yeah, no, good point. One thing we're doing, and it was announced later last year, but we're working with StoryCorps, and they have a lot of different opportunities under the StoryCorps program, but we're working with our Military Voices Initiative. And so what that means is there's just a standard set of questions we're wanting to get people talking about, start conversations, certainly empower anyone that is curious about service, to interview anyone that either has served or knows somebody who served in the military. And so what we've done is launched a partnership with StoryCorps, and we're starting it in education and our partnership with a lot of the K through 12 schools right now. But what we're doing is we're working with teachers and classrooms to arm and equip these students with a set of questions, and then inspire them to interview someone who has served or find someone who knows of somebody that has, and to just kind of get that dialogue going. We're also working with companies and corporations who have veterans on staff who have found that talent to be incredibly beneficial for their culture and just their bottom line. But then how do we take those stories of those who are in kind of the workforce but help inspire the next generation? So when we do field trips, we do field trips on site, but we also do virtual field trips. Invite those veterans who are out there in our community to be a part of those field trips, to be kind of the expert during the visit, to allow kids to just get comfortable about asking questions and getting real-time answers from anyone who has served. So that's just one where we're working in kind of the education side of the house, where we're also doing more on working with companies who have hired that veteran talent. And veteran employee resource groups have been something we've been working with over the last few years. But what's neat is giving them projects or community service engagement things to make sure that they're getting out in the community but continuing kind of that service theme. So we work real closely with a lot of companies in that regard. We have national ceremonies. We have four primary national ceremonies a year. One is Vietnam Veterans Day Welcome Home Ceremony. We do that every year on March 29th. We have a speaker that comes in, but then we also broadcast that nationwide. A lot of the schools that we work with nationwide go and broadcast that ceremony. It's a great way to, one, honor those who served during that era, but also just allow them to have a comfortable space to share their story. So for those that come into the museum on that day, It's been neat to see the families that join them who, have never heard them share some of the stories that they have. And it's neat to have that space where they feel comfortable enough to share that. And we want to do more of that, nationwide. The other ceremonies, obviously, we do Memorial Day every year. We do a candlelight vigil for Gold Star families, and then we do a Memorial Day ceremony to really honor those who have protected and defended our freedoms and sacrificed for what we have preserved. During that weekend, we also allow anyone to share a story of those who have lost their life or sacrificed their life to protect our nation. And we've done a flag campaign. So we plant flags on our grounds every year. And in the flag planting, we are opening it up for anyone to sponsor a flag and tell the story of a veteran who has served. And what's really neat is we last year started this campaign. We collected stories and had honored veterans from more than 32 states. This year, of course, we're wanting to have something from every one of the 50 states. We did the same thing on Veterans Day. We do a big Veterans Day ceremony, and we had some really phenomenal feedback for those that just wanted to honor veterans and honor service, and each one of those had a story. So we're going to be doing more, a little teaser of taking that flag campaign out to the nation, but where we can also have companies or individuals that sponsor a kit that goes to a school where they learn proper flag etiquette, meaning behind the flag, how to plant it, and then the meaning behind the days that we're remembering and honoring veterans, Memorial Day and Veterans Day. So those are just a few little projects, but we've got some things that are going to be coming out later this year. I can't go into details, but there's going to be some exciting new programming that we're going to be doing through partnerships later on this year.
All right, so stay tuned for more, obviously, on big things happening at the National Veterans Museum. But is it fair to say, if anyone out there, so a company with a veterans resource group that wants to get more involved to reach out to you,
Yeah.
companies that want to sponsor, certainly I know would probably reach out to you. Schools, do you work directly with schools or school system to tell
We
those
do.
stories? It sounds like that's one of the things you're trying to do is to get more schools around the country involved so they can talk to their parents or grandparents or uncle or neighbor and get those stories captured. Again, no, I mean we can put a plug in or a website in there. What's the website? Where should they go if they want to reach out and engage in any way, shape, or form? What's the best way to get in touch with you guys?
nationalvmm.org is our website, or National Veterans Memorial Museum. I know it's a mouthful, but go to our website. Also, we're on all the social media channels. You can follow us there under National Veterans Memorial Museum. There will be some upcoming programming, but feel free to reach out anytime. Yes, we do work with a lot of those companies, corporate sponsors. Certainly, we rely heavy on donors and members to sponsor our work, but the schools and where we are getting out in front of the youth of our nation, and we're not trying to push everyone. Service in the military is not for everyone, but there is something that they can learn just about service in general. We are going to be working to do more of partnership in the civics education space on just like getting back to some of the grassroots of what it means to serve and just kind of civics in general. There's one alcove in our museum that I want to kind of take this moment to focus on, and there's 14 different alcoves that we kind of tell the general story of everyone who's served, but there's one that is taking the oath. And that's where I say, you mentioned at the beginning that every veteran, however long or short that they served, that particular alcove is kind of the convener, not the convener, the neutralizer for everyone. Doesn't matter. Everyone who has served has raised their right hand and taken an oath to defend our Constitution. So it doesn't matter. They, at that moment, said that they were going to be part of something bigger than themselves and that they were willing to make a sacrifice to protect what we get to celebrate. And so that particular alcove, I'm hoping that people, while they may not wear the uniform, but that they know that there is something of great value, like you said, that foundation and transformation of service is powerful.
I love that. And again, you're exactly right. No matter what your background, no matter how long you served, you all raised your right hand and took that oath to the Constitution. And that is at the core of what the military service is all about. And again, I think like when you're in, sometimes you forget that, but you don't appreciate that you're giving back sometimes. I certainly... I missed what I call the give back factor when I left the military. It was something you maybe take for granted when you're doing it every day and wearing the uniform. And then when it's off, you're like, Didn't
Now
know
what?
how much I would
Yeah.
miss it, or
Yeah.
there was a part of me. And then I think it takes a little while for people to kind of figure it out and then try to figure out how they can give back in other ways, right? You're not serving with uniform anymore, but you can serve in other ways.
Yeah.
Certainly, like yourself, working at the museum, giving me that way. I'm out there trying to help veterans find jobs. But there's a million ways to give back. Whether you ever rose the right hand or not, you can give back and honor the memory of those that did, or the current service of those that gave back. And it's so important, again, for that next generation to appreciate that, because I think it's again, so few serve these days, and to capture that and what you're doing to capture that, and at its essence, that idea of service to country and something bigger than you, and giving back to something bigger than you, is just so important. And really appreciate what y'all are doing to capture that, and want to get the word out for anyone that wants to get involved. Veterans, non-veterans, companies, schools. If you want to get involved, I mean, it's an amazing resource you have there, and hopefully this podcast can get the word out to some more folks to join in and do their part to support in whatever way they can. So good stuff for sure, for sure.
Thank you for that. One of the projects that we're working on for next year, and I'll go back to another alcove in our museum, is a call to serve. The event of 9/11, the events of 9/11, were really a very prominent point in our history, that many were inspired to serve in reaction to what happened on those days. And next year, in 2026, will be the 25th anniversary. And I just want to highlight that, we don't want to have to wait for another very significant event like that to inspire people to serve. We need to do a better job of just showing the opportunity that service brings. Not only the experience that it will give you, unmatched as far as any other experience preparing you for leadership, but the opportunities that many have invested in, like you, Beau, like many of the others who have created programs, created career pathways, are getting intentional about those opportunities after service. To me, any of our youth right now, to strongly consider that military service is a great pathway to incredible careers after service. And you don't always have to go the traditional route, but there's just so much that it can offer. But I take that, the opportunity to share just a moment about next year and the meaning behind that anniversary. But let's not wait for something like that. Let's really just see and recognize the value of service and what it can really do for your community, those around you, and really for you as an individual in your growth.
I love that. And certainly it's hard. First off, it's hard to believe that 9/11 will be 25 years ago coming up next year. It seems like some days it seems like it was yesterday, then some days it seems like it was forever ago. But man, I love that you're capturing that. And right, and everybody can serve in their own way, right? Not everyone can join the military for whatever reason, but we can all find a way to serve in some way, shape, or form in our communities, and finding that way to give back. And again, for those veterans and what they did, great, good on them, and want to capture their story. But for everybody, hopefully get inspired to serve in some way, shape, or form, and how it makes sense to them to give back. We all have something to give back. We just need to kind of figure that out, and hopefully the museum can inspire some folks to figure that out in whatever way or shape or form that turns out to be as well. So great stuff.
We hope.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for being here with me today on this inaugural Opcast. I'm fired up about it. I really appreciate you sharing with us today. Any last words before we close out?
Well, I'm just going to give another plug for Oplign, and for anyone that's listening, highly recommend checking it out, even if it's just informing yourself, to share that as a resource to someone else. Get familiar with it. It really is the new way of connecting to career opportunities. I can't stress it enough. For any company that's looking for an easy solution, it's right there.
Love the easy button. Thanks, Marnie. I appreciate it. Great talking to you today. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Beau. Bye.